What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and we have wrapped up prediction season in a team-by-team sense. Now it is time to recap everything that we've talked about in some standings videos, as well as look ahead to your conference championship games to give you a little bit of a better idea before we do our college football playoff predictions. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. I'm a sports media graduate with a massive passion for stuff going on in the sports world, especially the world of college football. Thank you all so much for the support this past prediction season, and let's keep that support train rolling. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you're locked in to everything going on this college football season, and please help support me in other ways. Go follow my social medias at TailgateNate29 if you want to get to know me and my career in a little bit more of a personal sense. But thank you all for watching this video, for supporting and interacting with me in literally any way that you do so. And now it's time that we dive on in. SEC predictions, they're up first. And the SEC has always been the conference that's going to sit in the upper echelon of college football, right? And this year, there's a lot of interesting things that can go on in the SEC this year. So how we're going to do standings videos this year, you take a look over at the standings board, and normally I'd go through and talk about every team. I don't want these videos to be that long, so I am going to go through and sort of touch on a couple of key points and a couple of key teams here. Maybe we'll end up talking about everybody, who knows, as well as tell you why I have the conference championship game that I have and why I have picked who I have picked. So let's start from the bottom and we'll work our way to the top. That sound good? That sounds good to me. So you'll notice some of the teams that are at the bottom here: Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky. Mississippi State, I don't think a lot of people are going to question. It could just be another rough year under Jeff Lebby, and they need to start bulking up that talent to compare with the rest of the SEC. However, these two teams that you sit here at 15 and 14 with Arkansas and Kentucky, these are two teams that definitely can make some noise this year. Kentucky had one of the best classes out of the transfer portal, and if everything fits in the right place, Kentucky can make some noise, friends. They can do a lot better than I'm predicting here. Arkansas, same sort of thing. Even though they did not have the portal success that Kentucky did, Arkansas has still got some really, really good pieces. I am a believer in Taylon Green at the quarterback position, and hopefully he can get back to doing some good things this year. But overall, these two teams, I think Arkansas's got a tough schedule, and overall, I just see while they rebuilt their wide receiver room, some of their pieces I just don't think are all going to click necessarily this year. And for Kentucky, it's a lot of overturn. It's a lot of portal pieces to fit into a ton of different holes left on your roster. And I just don't see it working out for them this year as compared to the rest of the SEC. However, Vandy very notably is back in a bowl game. They have Diego Pavia back. Eli Stowers is going to be one of the best tight ends in the country. I really like this Vandy team. I think Clark Lee's done a phenomenal job. So they do go bowling this year. But then you'll notice a couple teams here, and I got the question asked of me, Nate, what's a fan base that you made very angry this offseason? I think I'd point to these two teams right here. I think Missouri and Tennessee are both going to end up taking steps backwards, right? I think Missouri's a team that just loses a lot of talent. Brady Cook, Luther Burden, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I do think that Missouri has got some really good pieces. They get another really good Sun Belt running back transfer in Ahmad Hardy. And speaking of the portal, they think that they got their guy at the quarterback position in Bo Pribula, but he is in a quarterback battle right now. Sam Horn is giving him quite the run for his money. So there is that quarterback battle that's going on there. Otherwise, though, I didn't think Missouri lost a lot of talent, and that's why I see the drop-off for them. And for Tennessee, I know what some Volunteer fans are going to say. That's an overreaction to the Nico Iamaleava situation. Not quite. Nico is a massive loss, yes, but you also could have seen Nico play a little bit better and improve his statistics based on what he had at Tennessee over the past couple of years. This is a reaction to everything else that they lose on top of Nico. There's no more Dylan Sampson. There's no more proven dynamic pieces in the wide receiver room. You lose your best defensive player in James Pierce. Joey Aguilar just got named the starter for Tennessee, which I think is best case scenario for him. I do like him. I think it's going to take a minute to adjust to the SEC level. And the thing you have to note about Tennessee is they're starting to really switch up their formula for how they play, right? Under Josh Heupel, back just a couple years ago, it used to be, okay, we're going to score 50. We'll see if you can as well. If you can, then it's going to be a battle. We're going to have a good game. Now, you started to see it last year with some of the wins that Tennessee was able to gather. They're switching more to that, hey, let's rely on our defense. The offense will get us some points. Sure, you got a really good offensive mind in Josh Heupel, but let's lean on this defense to help us with our success. I just think there's a lot of change in Rocky Top this year, and I do think there is some fall off with Tennessee this season. I still think a team with a lot of talent, but there is going to be that fall off this year. So then you get into the mid tier of the SEC, and really a lot of interesting ones here. I would probably categorize these three teams in that mid tier conversation as well as the ones that you see at 10, 9, and 8. So we'll start with Auburn, a team that I think has got a lot of talent. There's going to be some good moments. There's going to be some not so good moments. Auburn's really got to build that quarterback position, and if Jackson Arnold can show better things than he did at Oklahoma last year, then I think Auburn's got themselves a really nice quarterback, but there's a lot that Jackson Arnold has got to work on. There's a lot that Auburn's got to fit in, but Arnold does have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country. Pray it doesn't get hurt like what happened to Oklahoma last year. And when I look at the Auburn defense, sure, it's young. I see a lot of good talent. So Auburn, I'm not necessarily high on, but I think they're going to do fairly well. I know there are a lot of opinions circulating about Florida. I think they're also going to do fairly well, but man, that schedule is just brutal. That schedule is ridiculous, and that's why I see Florida finishing where they are, but I think they're going to be a lot better of a team than that 8-4 record would lead you to believe. I think this is the team that has probably one of the best quarterbacks in the country in DJ Lagway. I think that sophomore running back, Jaden Baugh, is going to look to absolutely explode this year, and I think Florida's got a lot of nice defensive pieces, and I think they're going to be physical this year. I think this is the Florida team that Billy Napier finally has that immense talent level to be able to outcompete with some of the other teams on their schedule. Again, though, as I said, that schedule is brutal. You have a ton of tough games on that schedule, including a brutal non-conference slate. Florida is going to be a team that's very interesting to watch this year. I think they see their ups, they see their downs. Overall, though, this is the Gator team that I do expect to do fairly well. To, I guess, dive into more specifics about this Florida schedule. Guys, they're playing the top three teams that I have in the standings. They play Texas, they play LSU, they play Georgia. You skip Bama, you play Ole Miss, you play Texas A&M. I believe you played Texas A&M. Yes, they do, on the road, including Florida's just got a brutal road, and I think that's what does them in here. I think Florida can be a lot higher than that if they can put everything together, pull off some upsets, get some wins. But Florida, by nature of their schedule, is going to be where they are. And touch on Oklahoma briefly, because now there's a lot of uncertainty within that Sooner program. Tell you why after a quick water break. Because it's always important to stay hydrated. The John Mateer situation going on right now is going to be really interesting to watch and follow. Now, what happens with him, I don't know. I don't know if anything will happen with John Mateer. But if he is not good and ready to go, that gives Oklahoma a disadvantage at the quarterback position based on how good of a player that John Mateer was at Washington State last year. His offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, is already over there as well. Now, I think even without Mateer, the offense will be fine, but I'm going to act like John Mateer is playing because, again, we haven't heard anything. We haven't even heard any sort of rumors and speculations that a punishment is coming soon, right? So just not going to assume that at all. Oklahoma's got a good wide out room. I think that defense is going to take some steps up this year. And I think Oklahoma 8-4 might not be that sleeper pick, but it is going to be a lot better of a season than Brent Venables' group had last year. And I do think that this is an Oklahoma team that will see some improvement this upcoming season. So now you get into 5, 6, 7, and these are teams that have the great potential to make some real noise. Now, I think you could also categorize Florida in that, but just by nature of their schedule and the way tiebreakers work out, they sit here at 9. So I think Florida you could throw in there, but South Carolina can make a lot of noise this year. They almost did last year. If they were able to beat that game or win that game against LSU, no matter what you think about the refs in that game or not, South Carolina was going to sit really pretty in SEC competition last year. They can do so again this year. I think they got some explosive weapons offensively. I do really like their quarterback in Lenora Sellers. I think Nick Harbor is probably the fastest wideout in college football. He is going to be flying on the go routes this year. And South Carolina's got some really good defensive pieces to make some really, really fun noise. But again, I see them faltering in a couple of games here, losing to some teams that, okay, maybe you have a good shot of beating, and just games I see them losing. A&M, I think, does show some improvement this year, even though it might not show in the record. I think A&M does get better. I think you got the right guy for the job in Mike Elko. I think Marcel Reed is finally going to be your guy at the quarterback position. Getting Le'Veon Moss back from injury was huge, and you got some good wideout and defensive pieces. Again, with Texas A&M, it's also going to be a product of that schedule, right? You have Notre Dame in non-conference play. You're going to look and see some really tough competition throughout the SEC. You have to play Texas, as well as some of the other top teams within this conference. And I think A&M just falters at some points this year. However, even though they stick with that 8-4 record, it is going to be an improved team this upcoming season. And Ole Miss, probably not the season that Rebel fans are going to imagine. However, Ole Miss does lose a lot of offensive talent, including their quarterback Jackson Dart. So it's understandable and reasonable that they could take a step back, which is what I'm predicting. They also, however, could also make that push to get back into the college football playoff, right? I think Austin Simmons is a great piece at the quarterback position. And even with all you lost, I think you still got some solid pieces in the wide receiver room, some really good weapons there to work with. But the defense is the big question with Ole Miss, right? It could take a little bit of a step back this season. However, when I look at the Ole Miss Rebels, I still, even though the star power not there, think they're going to have a pretty solid defense, even if it does take a step back this year. But ultimately, they sit at number 5. Now, I do not think the top 4 teams in this conference are really any sort of question. I think it is going to be those 4 teams you see as the biggest logos over on the left-hand side of the screen. The only question is, in what order do they finish? Now, I'm actually going to break my streak and start at the top. I think Texas is that team that is going to sit atop of the SEC. And I think any way you cut it, they're a team that's going to get into the SEC championship game because I think they are more talented than anybody else in this conference. And I think they might overall be the most talented team in college football. I mean, you just go up and down this roster, and it's ridiculous. They got a guy by the name of Arch Manning at quarterback. Yeah, he's pretty good. Their running back room is going to be great this year. And a lot of people forget that C.J. Baxter was hurt last year. He's coming back. Their wide receiver room is going to be stupid good. And their defense, I mean, name a position. They got a dog there. You want to talk about Trey Moore? Okay, sure. Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, Ethan Burke, Michael Taft. The list goes on and on. I mean, this Texas team is loaded. I got them faltering in that one non-conference game to Ohio State, a game they very well could win, and they also could drop that game to Georgia, which would make them 7-1. Even regardless, I think that's a team that gets in the SEC championship game as the most talented team in the country. Now, the other 3 teams, I think LSU's conference schedule sets them up the best. And while you could make the case on why they are the most talented team out of the 3 left, Georgia's going to get back to being, I think, a better run defense last year than what we saw last year. Alabama, I think, is finally going to piece it and put it all together. And these top 4 teams here are probably going to be players in the college football playoff. But I think LSU has all of those pieces necessary to be able to do some good damage, right? I do think that one loss to Alabama, I believe, is what I have in conference play. Not really going to hurt them that much. And again, Alabama finishes with a worse conference record. So LSU, by virtue of the standings board, the way I've predicted the season, I got them in the SEC championship game. And I think you could argue that, right? Garrett Nussmeier is going to be a great quarterback this year. Probably my pick to win SEC Offensive Player of the Year. You have Caden Durham in that running back room. You have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, and you just added to that through the transfer portal. If Harold Perkins stays healthy, that defense has got a lot of other pieces to be dangerous. And so them with Texas, I think will mark your SEC championship game. Georgia, Alabama, probably going to get at-large spots in the college football playoff, leaving the rest of the SEC. Well, okay, let's see what else happens around the country. But in my championship game, it's Texas, guys. I think Texas is going to win the SEC. This is just such a dangerous Texas team, and while it might take a little bit for some of the pieces to hone together, hence that early loss to Ohio State week 1, I do think Texas is the most talented team in the SEC, and they could be the most talented team in the country as well. I love every piece that they got from top to bottom. This roster is spotless. It is fantastic. You can't really find a flaw with this Texas team, and I got them winning the SEC, which could set them up to be that number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff. But there is your little SEC preview. This is the way I'm predicting the conference. Let me know what you got as far as your standings in the comment section below. We'll move on to the Big Ten next. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.